The Xylian Council chamber existed in perfect geometric harmony. 500 meters across, its walls curved inward like the petals of some great metallic flower, each surface polished to a mirror finish that reflected the council members seated in their floating thrones. The lighting shifted through shades of deep blue and gold, calibrated to the photoreceptors of the 11 species represented in the chamber. At the center, suspended in a sphere of contained gravity, floated Grand Admiral Thrax of the Xylian Dominion. His carapace, a deep burgundy armored shell, caught the light in ways that made him appear carved from solid gemstone. His 4 primary arms rested on the armrests of his throne, while his 2 secondary manipulator limbs tapped impatiently against the control panel before him. In the 1,000 cycles since his ascension to Grand Admiral, he had never been forced to convene the full council for a species assessment. Until now. "Present the intelligence," he commanded, his voice a low rumble that vibrated through the chamber's atmospheric systems. The holographic display at the center of the sphere flickered to life, showing a star map of the galaxy's outer spiral arm. A single system pulsed with a pale blue light. Sol, 3rd planet. Species designation, human, came the voice of Intelligence Coordinator Vex, his quadrupedal form hovering on a platform near the edge of the sphere. Homeworld, Earth. Classification, Class 3 primitive. Observations indicate they achieved spaceflight approximately 300 of their cycles ago. Thrax's mandibles clicked in annoyance. 300 cycles, and they warrant this assembly. The humans have been observed using electromagnetic propulsion in their vessels, Vex continued, his 3 eyes swiveling independently. Primitive, yes, but they have also been persistent. The chamber filled with the rustling sounds of amusement from the other council members. A Class 3 species. They were barely above the level of the primitive life forms that still crawled through the swamps of their own homeworld. The Dominion had cataloged thousands of such species across the galaxy. Most never progressed beyond their own system. Those that did were quickly absorbed into the galactic community, their technologies and cultures integrated into the vast tapestry of the Dominion's influence. Thrax leaned forward, persistent how. Vex's holographic display shifted to show images of a human vessel, an angular construction of metal and composite materials, bristling with antennae and sensor arrays. Its design was inelegant, functional in a way that bordered on crude, but there was something about it that made Thrax pause. The lines were purposeful. The proportions suggested a species that had learned through trial and error, through failure after failure, until they had achieved something that worked. They have explored beyond their system, Vex said. They have established small colonies on their planetary neighbors, and 3 of their cycles ago, they launched an expeditionary force into the Tannhäuser Gap. The chamber went quiet. The Tannhäuser Gap was Dominion territory, not officially claimed but patrolled by Dominion ships. The humans had no business there. "Did they encounter our patrols?" Thrax asked, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. "1 patrol. The humans transmitted what we initially believed to be a greeting. When our patrol attempted to communicate, the humans became agitated. They fired on our vessel." Another ripple of amusement through the chamber. A Class 3 species firing on a Dominion patrol ship. The audacity was almost admirable. Thrax knew the patrol had likely been conducting standard procedures, scanning the human vessel, attempting to establish communication protocols. Perhaps they had gotten too close. Perhaps the humans had misinterpreted the gesture. It didn't matter. What mattered was that a primitive species had fired on a Dominion vessel and survived the encounter. "Our patrol returned fire," Thrax asked, though he already knew the answer. "The patrol ship was destroyed," Vex said flatly. "The human vessel was damaged but escaped. They used kinetic projectiles accelerated through magnetic fields. Primitive, as I said, but effective against our patrol vessel's lower-grade shielding." Now the chamber was truly silent. Thrax could feel the weight of the other council members' stares. A Dominion patrol ship destroyed by a Class 3 species. It was an embarrassment. It was an insult. But more than that, it was a calculation that needed to be made. "What do they want?" Thrax asked. Vex's holographic display shifted to show intercepted communications. The images were grainy, translated through layers of linguistic analysis. Human faces appeared, fleshy, soft, with forward-facing eyes and expressive mouths. They gestured as they spoke. They argued with one another in what appeared to be chaotic debates, and at the center of it all was a phrase that appeared again and again. "Project Thunderbolt," Vex said. "Our translation algorithms are uncertain, but the context suggests a military application. Large-scale kinetic weaponry. They intend to deploy it from orbit." A laugh escaped from one of the other council members. Admiral Zor, his four legs gripping his throne as his triangular head tilted in amusement. A kinetic weapon from orbit. Against what? Their own primitive colonies. The Dominion has not used kinetic weapons in 3,000 cycles. Energy weapons are superior in every way. "Superior against energy shielding," Thrax said slowly. His mind was working through the implications. Energy shields were designed to absorb and dissipate energy attacks. They were useless against physical projectiles. But that didn't matter. No species in the known galaxy still used kinetic weapons at the scale the humans were proposing. It would be like attacking a fortress with a stone-throwing machine. Ineffective, antiquated, a waste of resources. But the humans were different. Thrax could feel it in his carapace. There was something about their persistent nature, their willingness to fire on a Dominion patrol, their plans for something they called Thunderbolt. They weren't just a primitive species making noise. They were a primitive species that didn't know they were supposed to be afraid. "Send a delegation," Thrax commanded. 5 ships, show of force. They will be educated on their place in the galactic order. They will surrender their weapons technology and accept Dominion protection. "And if they resist?" Vex asked. Thrax's mandibles clicked in what passed for a smile among his kind. "They will not resist. They are primitive. They will see our ships and understand their insignificance." He turned to the holographic display, showing the human homeworld rotating slowly in the blackness. Blue oceans, green continents, white clouds. It was beautiful in the way all primitive worlds were beautiful, unspoiled, innocent, waiting to be claimed. "We will arrive in 3 of their cycles," Thrax said. "Coordinate with the fleet. I want to be there when they understand." The council chamber began to clear as the other members drifted away on their platforms, but Thrax remained, staring at the image of Earth. Something troubled him, something about the way the humans had fired on that patrol ship. Not hesitation, not fear, determination. He dismissed the thought. They were primitive, they would learn. But as he watched the blue planet spin, he couldn't shake the feeling that somewhere, deep in the folds of his ancient instincts, something was telling him to be careful. He ignored it. Commander Helena Voss stood at the observation window of the orbital platform designated Thunderbolt 1, watching Earth rotate beneath her. The planet was beautiful from this altitude, a perfect sphere of blue and green and white, the clouds swirling in patterns that had fascinated humanity since the first time they looked up from their caves and wondered what was out there. She wondered what they would think now. The platform stretched a kilometer in length, its main body a cylindrical structure bristling with solar arrays and cooling systems. At its core, housed in a reinforced chamber that had taken 3 years to construct, sat the weapon that had consumed her life for the past 6 years. The Railgun, the first of its kind, the weapon that was supposed to change everything. Helena's fingers traced the cold glass of the observation window. She was 42 cycles old, her dark hair streaked with gray that had appeared in the last 3 years. Her face was lined from stress, from sleepless nights, from the weight of knowing that every decision she made could determine the fate of billions. But her eyes were clear, focused. She had been chosen for this command because she was one of the few people in the military who understood what was at stake. "You should eat, Commander." She turned to see Lieutenant Javier Reyes approaching, a tray of food floating in the microgravity beside him. He had been her second in command since the project began, and in that time he had become something more than a subordinate. He was her anchor, the person who reminded her to sleep, to eat, to remember that there was a life beyond the weapon. "Not hungry," she said. "You're never hungry." He floated to a halt beside her, offering the tray. "The technicians are worried about you." "The technicians should be worried about the targeting systems." "The targeting systems are calibrated, the projectile is loaded, the capacitors are charged, everything is ready." He paused. "Except you." Helena took the tray, more to appease him than anything else. She picked at the food without tasting it, her gaze returning to the planet below. "They're coming, Javier. The Xylian fleet. We intercepted their communications. They want to educate us." Javier's expression hardened. He was a tall man, broad-shouldered, with the kind of face that made people trust him immediately. But when he spoke of the Xylian, his voice carried an edge that reminded everyone why he'd been assigned to this project. "The Council wants to delay the test. They're concerned that firing the weapon while the Xylian fleet is in the system could be interpreted as an act of aggression." "Interpreted how?" Helena asked, her voice flat. "As a response to being invaded, as a demonstration that we will not be intimidated, as the only language the Dominion understands." "Diplomats are still talking. They think there might be a peaceful resolution." "Peaceful?" Helena laughed, but there was no humor in it. "The Xylian destroyed a human colony. They murdered thousands of our people, and when we defended ourselves, they responded by sending a fleet to demand our surrender." She turned to face Javier fully. "There is no peaceful resolution. There is only the choice between submission and survival." Javier was silent for a moment. He knew her story. Everyone who worked on the project knew her story. Helena Voss was not just a commander, she was a survivor. Her parents had been on the colony when the Xylian patrol ships arrived. They had been among the thousands who died. Helena had been on Earth, waiting for their return, expecting a communication that never came. When the news finally arrived, she had been 22 cycles old. Young, idealistic, believing that the galaxy was full of possibilities and that humanity could find its place among the stars. That belief had died in the flames of the colony's destruction. "I remember when we started this project," Helena said, her voice softening. 6 years ago, we didn't even know if it was possible. The physics said yes, but the engineering was impossible. The power requirements alone were beyond anything we'd ever attempted. The cooling systems would have to handle temperatures that would melt steel. The targeting systems would have to account for relativistic effects. Every single component had to be invented from nothing. "But you did it," Javier said. "We did it." "Because we had to." Helena's gaze drifted back to Earth. "We've been watching the galactic community for decades. We've seen how they treat primitive species. We've seen the Xylian Dominion expand, absorbing worlds, stripping them of their resources, their cultures, their identities. We've seen what happens to species that cannot defend themselves." She paused, her hand pressing against the glass. "We are not going to be that species. We are never going to be that species." The intercom crackled to life, breaking the moment. "Commander Voss, you're receiving a priority transmission from Earth." Helena floated to the communications station, her body moving through the microgravity with practiced ease. She had spent enough time on the platform that zero-G felt more natural than gravity. When she reached the display, she saw the face of Admiral Chen, the director of the project, his expression grim. "Commander," Chen said, "the Xylian fleet will arrive in 6 hours. They've sent a transmission. They're demanding we stand down, surrender all weapons technology, and accept their protection." "What is the Council's response?" Helena asked. "The Council is still debating, but I need you to prepare for the test. The platform is operational. If we're going to demonstrate our capabilities, we need to do it now." "Demonstrate to whom?" Helena asked. "The Xylian or the Council?" Chen's eyes flickered with something that might have been approval. "Both. We need to show the galaxy that we are not a species to be dismissed. We need to show them that we are capable of defending ourselves. And we need to show the Council that their faith in diplomacy is misguided." What are you asking me to do? I'm asking you to be ready. The moment the fleet arrives, I want you to transmit a warning. Give them the opportunity to leave. When they refuse, I want you to fire the weapon. Helena felt her heart rate increase. This was the moment she had been preparing for her entire life. The moment when humanity would announce its presence to the galaxy. The moment when everything changed. "Understood, sir," she said. Chen nodded. 6 hours, Commander, make them remember. The transmission ended. Helena turned to Javier, who was watching her with an expression that mixed concern and anticipation. 6 hours, he said. What do we do until then? Helena's lips curved into a smile. It was not a warm expression. It was the smile of someone who had been waiting for this moment for a very long time. We prepare, she said, and we wait. The Xylian fleet emerged from shift space in a cascade of violet light that rippled across the void like water disturbed by a thrown stone. 5 ships, each one a kilometer of armored hull, bristling with weapons emplacements and defensive systems. Their design was elegant in the way that all Xylian vessels were elegant, curved surfaces that flowed into one another, energy conduits pulsing with power beneath translucent armor plates, sensor arrays that swept across the star system with predatory precision. At the center of the fleet floated the flagship, the Dominion's pride. Admiral Thrax stood on the command platform, his 6 arms clasped behind his back as he studied the tactical display. The human homeworld rotated in the center of the screen, its atmosphere thick with the signatures of primitive industry. He could see the orbital platform that the humans had built, a crude construction of metal and composite materials. But there was something about it that made him pause. "Analysis," he commanded. The ship's tactical computer responded instantly, its synthesized voice filling the command chamber. Orbital platform designated Thunderbolt 1. Mass, approximately 2 million metric tons. Power output, significant but inconsistent with energy weapon technology. Primary structure appears to be a large-caliber projectile launcher using electromagnetic acceleration. Thrax's mandibles clicked in surprise. The humans had actually built it. They had taken their theoretical concept and turned it into a physical reality. It was impressive in the way that watching a child build a fortress out of rocks was impressive, adorable, and ultimately futile. "Range of the projectile weapon?" he asked. "Maximum effective range is difficult to calculate due to unknown projectile mass and acceleration," the computer replied. "Theoretical maximum range is significant. However, accuracy diminishes proportionally." Thrax waved a hand, dismissing the information. Accuracy was irrelevant. The weapon would be destroyed long before the humans had a chance to fire it. He would give them the opportunity to surrender, as was proper. They would refuse. He would destroy their platform. They would learn. He opened a channel to the fleet. "All ships, assume defensive formation, charge weapons. We will broadcast our demands and give them 1 hour to comply." The fleet responded, their positions shifting as they moved into a diamond formation around the flagship. Thrax watched the humans' orbital platform on his display, expecting to see signs of panic, ships fleeing, transmissions of surrender, anything that suggested the primitive species understood the magnitude of the force arrayed against them. Instead, he saw nothing. The platform remained stationary. The human ships stayed in their positions. It was as if they hadn't noticed the fleet at all. "Broadcast our demands," Thrax ordered. The transmission was sent on all standard frequencies, translated into the human's primary language. "Attention, human species. This is Grand Admiral Thrax of the Xylian Dominion. You have been observed engaging in activities that violate Dominion protocols. You have fired upon a Dominion vessel. You have developed weaponry beyond your species' designated classification. You will stand down. You will surrender all weapons technology. You will accept Dominion protection. You have 1 hour to comply. Failure to do so will result in the destruction of your orbital platform and the subjugation of your homeworld." Thrax watched the transmission with satisfaction. It was perfect, clear, unambiguous. No species in the galaxy would refuse such a demand. The humans would respond with fear and submission, as primitive species always did. The human response came 30 seconds later. "This is Commander Helena Voss of Thunderbolt 1. We acknowledge your demands. We have also prepared a counter-proposal. You will withdraw your fleet from our system. You will cease all aggressive actions against human space. Failure to do so will result in the destruction of your flagship. We are giving you 30 minutes to comply." The command chamber went silent. Thrax stared at the transmission, his mandibles frozen in shock. The human commander had not only refused his demand, she had issued her own, and she had given him a deadline, 30 minutes. "Are they insane?" Admiral Zor's voice came through the fleet's communication channel. "They expect us to retreat because of one primitive weapon." Thrax's shock transformed into cold anger. He would not be mocked. He would not be threatened. The humans had made a grievous error. They had mistaken his offer of mercy for weakness. They would learn. "All ships," Thrax commanded. "Target the human platform. Prepare to fire on my mark." The fleet's weapons systems powered up, their energy signatures visible on the tactical display as bright orange points of light. Thrax watched the human platform, expecting them to finally show fear. Instead, the platform's power output increased. The humans were charging their weapon. They were actually going to try to fire at his fleet. "Admiral," the tactical officer said, his voice uncertain. "Sensors indicate the human platform is targeting a nearby asteroid. They're not aiming at us." Thrax frowned. What were they doing? "Show me." The tactical display zoomed in on the asteroid, a chunk of rock roughly 500 meters in diameter. It was positioned approximately 100,000 kilometers from the human platform, well within the weapon's theoretical range. The power output of the human platform reached its peak, and then, in a flash of electromagnetic radiation that blinded the ship's sensors, the projectile was launched. It traveled at a significant fraction of the speed of light. It crossed the distance to the asteroid in less than a second. When it struck, the asteroid didn't just explode. It vaporized. The energy of the impact converted the rock into plasma, which expanded outward in a sphere of incandescent gas that continued to glow long after the impact. Thrax stared at the sensor readings. The weapon had achieved an acceleration that shouldn't have been possible for a kinetic projectile. The power requirements alone should have overwhelmed the platform systems, but the humans had done it. They had built a weapon that could fire a projectile at velocities approaching light speed. He felt something he hadn't felt in 1,000 cycles: fear. "If that weapon had been aimed at us," the tactical officer said quietly, "our shields would have been useless. The projectile would have punched through our armor like it was paper. We would have been destroyed." "Silence," Thrax snapped, but he was already processing the implications. The weapon wasn't primitive. It wasn't antiquated. It was a technological achievement that the Dominion couldn't match. The humans had solved problems that the galaxy's greatest minds had considered impossible. They had done it with their own knowledge, their own resources, their own determination. And they had just demonstrated their capabilities. "Admiral," another officer called out, "the human platform is targeting our fleet. They're charging their weapon again. They can't fire through the asteroid impact debris, but they're calculating a solution. They'll be ready to fire in 15 minutes. Thrax's mind raced. He had a choice. He could retreat, preserve his fleet, and report back to the Council. He could admit that he had underestimated the humans. He would lose face, but his ships would survive. Or he could attack. He could order the fleet to fire on the human platform, destroy it before the humans could launch another projectile. It would be a direct violation of the traditions of engagement, but it would eliminate the threat. He would lose ships, but he would win the battle. Pride warred with prudence. The humans had humiliated him. They had demonstrated their power and his impotence. They had shown the galaxy that the Xylian Dominion was not invincible, and Thrax could not allow that to stand. "All ships," he said, his voice cold. "Attack formation, target the human platform, fire on my command." He would show them that the Dominion's power did not depend on their kind of weapons. He would show them that his fleet could annihilate their platform before they could fire again. He would show them that they had made a mistake. The fleet began to move, their weapons charging. Thrax watched the human platform, waiting for the fear to show. The platform's power output increased again. Helena watched the tactical display with the calm focus of a predator. The Xylian fleet was moving, their formation shifting from defensive to offensive. Their weapons were charging. They had chosen to attack. "It's beautiful," she murmured. Javier looked at her, confused. "What?" "Their arrogance," she gestured at the display. "They saw our demonstration. They know what our weapon can do, and they still think they can win. They're so certain of their superiority that they can't imagine any other outcome." The platform's weapon was charged and ready. The targeting systems had calculated the optimal solution, a shot that would pass through the asteroid impact debris and strike the Xylian flagship with devastating force. Helena had 15 minutes before the platform was ready to fire. "Commander," the weapons officer called out, "we're receiving a transmission from the Xylian flagship. The Admiral is requesting to speak with you directly." Helena smiled, put him through. The holographic display in the center of the command chamber flickered to life, showing the image of Grand Admiral Thrax. He was a massive figure, his carapace gleaming in the chamber's lighting, his 6 arms spread wide in what was probably meant to be an imposing gesture. But Helena could see the uncertainty in his eyes. "You have made a serious miscalculation, Commander," Thrax said. "Your weapon is impressive, but it cannot save you. My fleet will overwhelm your platform. You will be destroyed." "Interesting," Helena said, her voice calm. "You have seen what our weapon can do. You know that your shields are useless against it. You know that we can destroy your flagship with a single shot. And yet, here you are, threatening us." Thrax's mandibles clicked in anger. "Your weapon requires time to charge. In that time, my fleet will have already destroyed your platform." "We have more than one weapon." Helena's smile widened. "We have more than one platform. We have been building them for 6 years. We have them in orbit around Earth, around Mars, around our moons. We have them hidden in the asteroid belt. You can destroy this platform, Admiral, but you cannot destroy all of them." It was a bluff. They only had the one platform, but Thrax didn't know that, and Helena could see in his eyes that he was considering the possibility. "You're lying," Thrax said, but his voice lacked conviction. "Am I? Your intelligence network has been monitoring us. You must have seen our shipyards. You must have seen the resources we've been dedicating to this project. You must have wondered what we were building." The silence stretched between them. Helena could see the calculations running behind Thrax's eyes. She had planted the seed of doubt. Now she just needed to nurture it. "You can walk away," she said. "You can tell your council that we are not worth the cost, that we are too dangerous to engage, that it's better to let us be." "And if I don't?" Helena's expression hardened. "Then we will show you exactly what happens to species that threaten humanity." She cut the transmission before Thrax could respond. The tactical display showed the Xylian fleet approaching, their weapons fully charged. Helena had 10 minutes before the platform was ready to fire. "Commander," Javier said, his voice urgent, "we have to make a decision. If they fire on us, we might not survive long enough to return fire." "Then we hope they hesitate," Helena said. "We hope that doubt is enough." She watched the display, her heart pounding in her chest. This was the moment. The moment when everything could change. The moment when humanity would either prove itself or be destroyed. The Xylian fleet continued to advance. Their weapons systems were targeting the platform. Helena could see the energy signatures on the display, bright orange points of light that would soon become beams of destruction. 5 minutes to charge, the weapons officer announced. "Hold steady," Helena said. "Don't fire until I give the order." The Xylian ships were close enough now that Helena could see them with the naked eye through the observation window. They were magnificent vessels, curved and elegant, powered by technology that humanity could only dream of. But they were also vulnerable. The humans had found a weakness in their armor, a gap in their defenses, and they were about to exploit it. 3 minutes, the weapons officer said. Commander, Javier said, his voice tight. I'm receiving transmissions from Earth. The Council is demanding that we stand down. They want to negotiate. Tell them we are negotiating, Helena said. Tell them we are negotiating with our weapon. The Xylian ships reached their optimal firing range. Helena could see the weapon emplacements glowing bright orange as they charged for the final time. She had 2 minutes. Commander, the weapons officer said, targeting solution ready. We can fire on your mark. Helena looked at the tactical display. The Xylian flagship was at the center of the formation, surrounded by its escorts. A single shot could destroy it, but the other ships would survive. They would fire on the platform, destroy it, and then retreat. The conflict would continue. Unless she did something different. Adjust targeting solution, she said. Aim for the fleet's center. The flagship is our priority, but if we can destroy multiple ships with a single shot. The weapons officer's eyes widened as he understood. If we hit the center of the formation, the kinetic projectile will pass through the first ship and continue into the second. The energy transfer could cause a chain reaction. We could destroy 3 ships with 1 shot. Do it, Helena said. The targeting systems adjusted. The weapon's capacitors hummed with power. Helena watched the Xylian fleet through the observation window, knowing that in a few moments, everything would change. 1 minute, the weapons officer said. The Xylian ships began to fire. Orange beams of energy lanced across the void, striking the platform's shields. The impact was tremendous, shaking the entire structure. Helena gripped her chair, her teeth clenched. We can't take many more hits, Javier shouted. We don't have to, Helena said. Fire. The weapon fired. The projectile emerged from the railgun's barrel at a velocity that distorted space around it. It crossed the distance between the platform and the Xylian fleet in less than a second. The first ship in its path, a destroyer-class vessel, attempted to evade. It was too slow. The projectile punched through its hull as if it were paper, vaporizing armor and internal systems in a chain reaction of destruction. The ship exploded, its energy core detonating with the force of a small sun. The projectile continued, unaltered by the impact. It struck the second ship, a cruiser-class vessel with equal force. This ship was larger, more heavily armored, but the projectile's velocity and mass were beyond anything its hull could withstand. It tore through the cruiser, emerging from the other side in a spray of molten metal and superheated gas. The cruiser's energy core ruptured, adding its own explosion to the expanding sphere of destruction. The third ship, the Dominion's Pride, had time to react. Its shields activated, creating a barrier of energy that was designed to absorb attacks. But the projectile's kinetic energy was too great. The shield strained, flickered, and failed. The projectile struck the flagship's hull, punching through armor plating and bulkheads in a straight line. It emerged from the other side of the vessel, carrying with it a cloud of debris and atmosphere. The flagship's power core detonated moments later, consuming the ship in a fireball that could be seen from the surface of Earth. In less than 2 seconds, the Xylian fleet had lost 3 ships. The remaining 2 vessels scattered, their tactical computers unable to process the destruction. Their weapons ceased fire as their commanders attempted to understand what had just happened. On the platform, Helena watched the destruction unfold on her tactical display. She had expected devastation. She had not expected the shockwave to be so extensive. The explosions from the 3 ships had created a debris field that was spreading in all directions, the fragments of Xylian vessels now traveling at high velocities. We have a problem, Javier said, his voice strained. The debris field is expanding. Some of the fragments are going to collide with Earth's atmosphere. They're going to burn up, but the energy release could cause significant atmospheric disruption. Helena's stomach clenched. She hadn't considered that. Can we intercept? Not with the railgun. It takes too long to charge, but we can send our ships to deflect the larger fragments. Do it. Helena turned to the communications officer. Contact Earth. Tell them we've neutralized the Xylian threat, but we have a secondary concern: atmospheric contamination from debris. We need to coordinate a response. She watched the tactical display as the surviving Xylian ships retreated into shift space. The remaining ships would report back to the Council. Within days, the entire galaxy would know what had happened. Humanity had just announced its presence in the most violent way possible. Commander, Javier said, his voice quiet. We did it, we won. Helena looked at the observation window. The debris field was spreading, a cloud of destruction where the Xylian fleet had once stood. She could see the flashes of atmosphere burning up as fragments entered Earth's atmosphere. Win, she said, her voice hollow. Is that what we call this? You saved billions of lives. You showed them that we can't be conquered. You gave humanity a future. Helena closed her eyes. She had wanted this. She had wanted to prove that humanity was not a species to be dismissed. She had wanted to avenge her parents, her colony, all the humans who had died at the hands of the Xylian. She had gotten what she wanted. And it felt like ashes in her mouth. Get me a direct line to Earth, she said. I need to speak with the Council, and I need to send a message to the Xylian Dominion. They need to understand what happened here. Her heart was pounding in her chest. She had just changed the course of galactic history. She had just made humanity a power to be reckoned with. She had just shown the galaxy that they would never be underestimated again. But she had also killed thousands of Xylian sailors. She had started a war that would define humanity's future. She had become the most famous human in history, and she would be remembered as the person who unleashed the weapon that changed everything. Get me that line, she said again. I'm not done yet. The Xylian Council chamber was in chaos. Thrax stood in the center of the sphere, his carapace scorched and cracked from his escape pod's descent. The holographic display showed the destruction of his fleet, the images playing on a loop that the Council had been watching for the past hour. Every time the projectile struck the first ship, every time the flagship exploded, the Council members winced as if they were being struck themselves. This is impossible, Admiral Zor said, his voice trembling. No primitive species could achieve such a weapon. The energy requirements alone should have been beyond their capabilities. The weapon is primitive, Intelligence Coordinator Vex said, his 3 eyes flickering with data. That is the problem. We have become dependent on energy shielding. We have no defenses against kinetic projectiles of that magnitude. They have exploited our weakness. We need to destroy them, another council member said. We need to send the full fleet. We need to annihilate their planet. Impossible, Thrax said, his voice hoarse. We don't know how many platforms they have. They claim to have weapons hidden throughout their system. Orbital platforms, asteroid installations, surface emplacements. If we attack, we could lose everything. It was a bluff, Admiral Zor said. They were trying to save themselves. They cannot have more than one weapon. Thrax looked at the holographic display, at the remains of his fleet, at the image of Earth that seemed to mock him with its indifference. Can you be certain? Your intelligence network has been monitoring them for decades. Did you know about the platform? Did you know about the weapon? Silence filled the chamber. None of them had known. The humans had hidden their capabilities, building their weapon in secret, waiting for the moment when they could demonstrate their power. It had taken them 6 years. 6 years of dedication, of sacrifice, of determination. They had turned their system into a fortress without anyone noticing. The humans are more than just primitive, Thrax said slowly. They are dangerous. They have a drive that we cannot match. They survived their homeworld's extremes, their own wars, their own destruction. They have faced extinction and risen from the ashes stronger than before. They are not like any species we have encountered. Then what do we do? Admiral Zor asked. We cannot let this stand. The humans have humiliated us. The galaxy will know. We must respond. I have already responded, Thrax said. I have sent a message to the human commander. I have offered them terms. Terms? Admiral Zor's voice rose in outrage. They destroyed 3 of our ships. They killed thousands of our sailors, and you offer them terms. Thrax turned to face the Admiral. I offered them what they wanted, peace. They have withdrawn their weapon from targeting our ships. They have agreed to a ceasefire. They have told us that they have no desire to conquer our worlds. They simply want to be left alone. And you believed them. It does not matter what I believe. What matters is that the galaxy now knows what they are capable of. Other species will watch. They will see what happened here. They will think twice before challenging the humans, and we will have time to prepare. Thrax walked to the center of the chamber, his 6 arms clasped behind his back. We made a mistake. We underestimated them, but we are the Xylian Dominion. We have been the dominant power in the galaxy for 10,000 cycles. We have faced threats before and overcome them. We will face this threat and overcome it as well. But first, we must understand them. We must learn their weaknesses. We must find a way to defeat them. And if we can't, Admiral Zor asked. Thrax was silent for a long moment. Then we will have to accept that the galaxy has changed, that we are no longer the most powerful species in the galaxy, that there is something else out there that is more dangerous than we ever imagined. The council chamber fell into silence. The holographic display continued to show the destruction of the fleet, the images playing over and over. Thrax watched the humans' homeworld rotating slowly on the display, blue and green and white, beautiful and terrible. Prepare a diplomatic mission, he said. We will send ambassadors to Earth. We will learn what they want. We will find a way to coexist. And if they don't want to coexist, Vex asked. Thrax's mandibles clicked in what might have been a sigh. Then we will have to be ready for what comes next. The diplomatic delegation arrived at Earth's orbit 3 cycles later. The Xylian vessel was small, unarmed, its hull covered in ceremonial markings that represented peace and good faith. The humans had accepted the delegation, agreeing to meet on neutral ground, a space station located in Earth's orbit, far from the now-destroyed Thunderbolt platform. Helena Voss stood in the reception chamber of the station, wearing her formal uniform. The gold braid on her shoulders marked her as a commander, but her face told a different story. She had not slept well since the battle. The images of the Xylian ships exploding, the debris field spreading across the void, the thousands of lives that had been extinguished in less than 2 seconds, all of it had haunted her dreams. We should have done this before, Javier said, standing beside her. We should have tried to communicate. Would they have listened? Helena asked. Would they have believed we were capable of defending ourselves? Would they have left us alone? Javier had no answer. The Xylian delegation entered the chamber. They were led by a figure that Helena recognized from the intelligence reports, a diplomat named Cress, whose carapace was a pale shade of blue that indicated a non-military background. Cress was shorter than the other Xylian Helena had seen, with a posture that suggested deference rather than aggression. Commander Voss, Cress said, her translator device producing the human language with surprising clarity. I am grateful that you agreed to meet with us. The Xylian Dominion wishes to establish a new relationship with the human species. Helena nodded. We welcome the opportunity to communicate. We hope that our future interactions will be more peaceful than our past. Cress's mandibles clicked in what might have been agreement. The Dominion has reviewed the events of the recent conflict. We acknowledge that we underestimated your species. We have also acknowledged that our approach was inappropriate. Inappropriate, Helena repeated. Your ships destroyed a human colony. They killed thousands of my people. And when we defended ourselves, you sent a fleet to force our surrender. Inappropriate is not the word I would use. Cress's 3 eyes blinked in rapid succession. The Dominion wishes to make reparations. We will offer compensation to the families of the dead. We will provide access to our technology. We will recognize your sovereignty over your own system. Why? Helena asked. Why are you offering so much? Cress was silent for a moment. When she spoke, her voice was quieter. Because we are afraid. The galaxy has not seen a weapon like yours in 10,000 cycles. The Dominion has depended on our energy shielding for so long that we have forgotten how to defend against kinetic attacks. Your weapon has changed everything. Helena felt the weight of those words. She had not just defeated a fleet. She had changed the balance of power in the galaxy. She had made humanity a threat that even the Dominion feared. I don't want your technology, she said. I don't want your compensation. I want one thing, an understanding. We are a species that will not be conquered. We are a species that will defend ourselves against any threat. We are a species that will not be underestimated. Cress nodded. The Dominion understands. We will leave your system. We will not interfere in your affairs. We will treat you as equals. Equals, Helena said, the word foreign on her tongue. That is all we ever wanted. The meeting continued for several hours. Helena and Javier discussed the terms of the agreement, while Cress and her delegation promised to abide by the new arrangement. By the time the meeting ended, Helena felt exhausted but relieved. The war was over. The galaxy had learned its lesson. But as she watched the Xylian delegation depart, she couldn't shake the feeling that something had changed. Something fundamental. The galaxy was no longer the same place it had been before the Railgun. The rules had changed, and humanity had written the new ones. Helena stood in the observation dome of the new orbital platform, Thunderbolt 2, the replacement for the one destroyed in the battle. Earth rotated beneath her, blue and green and white, beautiful as always. But now it was different. Now the planet was surrounded by ships, human ships, Dominion ships, ships from a dozen other species, all of them eager to establish diplomatic relations with the newest power in the galaxy. 6 months had passed since the battle. 6 months of negotiations, of treaties, of humanity carving out a place for itself in the galactic community. The Dominion had kept its promise, withdrawing its forces from human space and providing assistance in the cleanup of the debris field. The atmosphere had recovered, the fragments of the destroyed ships now collected and stored for future analysis. But Helena knew that the peace was fragile. The Dominion was afraid, but fear could turn to anger. Other species were watching, waiting to see what humanity would do next. And humanity itself was divided. Some wanted to expand, to claim new worlds, to assert its dominance over the galaxy. Others wanted to withdraw, to isolate itself from the conflict that seemed inevitable. Javier floated into the observation dome, a data tablet in his hand. The council wants to speak with you. They want to award you a medal. They want to promote you to admiral. Helena didn't turn from the window. And what do you want? I want you to take the promotion. I want you to be happy. I want you to stop staring out this window and come back to the rest of us. Helena laughed, but it was a hollow sound. You know what I did, Javier? I killed thousands of Xylian sailors. I started a war. I changed the galaxy forever, and now they want to give me a medal. You saved humanity. You gave us a chance to survive. You proved that we are not a species to be dismissed. Did I? Helena turned to face him. Or did I just make us the biggest target in the galaxy? The Dominion is afraid now. But they're also learning. They're developing new weapons, new defenses. Other species are doing the same. In 100 cycles, in 1,000 cycles, we will be facing wars that make what we did look like a child's game. And it will be my fault, because I showed them what we were capable of. I showed them that we could be dangerous. Javier moved closer, his eyes meeting hers. You showed them that we could survive. That's not something to be ashamed of. That's something to be proud of. Helena was silent for a long moment. She looked out the window at the earth below, at the ships surrounding it, at the future that was unfolding before her eyes. We have a responsibility now, she said. To the galaxy, to the other species, to the future. We cannot just conquer, we cannot just destroy, we have to build. We have to create a world where no one has to do what I did. Javier nodded. That's why you're the one who should be leading us. Helena shook her head. I don't want to lead. I just want to make sure that what happened doesn't happen again." She turned back to the window, her eyes fixed on the blue planet below. She had done what she set out to do. She had proven that humanity was not a species to be underestimated. She had given her people a future. She had changed the galaxy forever. But as she looked at the world that she had fought so hard to protect, she knew that the real work was just beginning. Humanity had survived. It had announced its presence. Now it had to decide what kind of presence it would be. The galaxy was watching, and Helena Voss, the woman who had fired the first shot, was determined to make sure that humanity's future was not defined by destruction. It was defined by what came next.